The Tour de France is full of weird and interesting stories. There are rules and facts that can seem bizarre. Many of these are well known, but some less so. And in this video, I've picked out some of my favourites from this very special race. This is the Tour de France and its weird and wonderful glory. Starting off with the yellow jersey. These days, yellow is synonymous with the Tour de France. Yellow is the Tour. It represents the entire race. It may seem strange, but this actually wasn't always the case. The yellow jersey was first worn by the overall winner of the race during its 13th edition in 1919, in the first running of the race after World War I. At the time, riders used cycling jerseys with no dye. Trade teams distinguished themselves with embroidered badges on the shoulders, and other than that, the colour of the riding kit was pretty faded. At the time, the race leader wore a green armband, signifying him as leader. But one team director, Alphonse Bourges, had an idea to make the race leader more noticeable: a dyed coloured jersey. Henry de Grange was approached and the yellow jersey was born. The first rider to wear the jersey, Frenchman Eugene Christophe, wasn't too happy about it though, and was said to complain that he looked like a canary, with spectators laughing at him. Despite his early complaints though, the yellow jersey stuck and evolved to be the most coveted garment in cycling. You may not have heard of Zipf's law, but this mysterious mathematical pattern is at work behind the men's Tour de France winners list. I actually spotted this in an article written by Kit Yates, Director of Mathematical Biology at Bath University here in the UK. Look at the overall wins by country at the Tour and you'll notice Zipf's law. So, Belgian riders have won exactly half the amount of times the French have. Spain has won a third of the amount of Belgium, and Italy has won very close to a quarter of Spain. Even more interesting, if you ignore French-dominated wins before the First World War, the argument for Zipf's law improves. It's a mysterious pattern, but one present in cycling's biggest race. But what I find really strange is how this pattern is present in many other sporting winners lists. Check out the Olympic medal table and you'll notice an example of Zipf's law too. It could be said that the 1980s were a time when cycling in the USA was on the up. Greg LeMond was winning at the Tour and a number of riders from across the pond were starting to show themselves on the biggest stage. But let's not forget, it was actually Marianne Martin who was the first rider from the States to win the Tour de France, and actually the first rider to win the official Women's Tour de France held back in 1984. Martin managed to secure the last spot on the US team just weeks before the start of the Tour, and the rest, as they say, is history. Controversially, the first edition of the Women's Tour de France is disputed. There was a race in 1955, won by Manx rider Millie Robinson. It held the same name, but was run by a different organisation to the official Tour. Tour de France Femme avec Zwift is now firmly secured into place as the official Women's Tour, with 2025 being its 4th edition. Taking place after the men's race finishes, it's 9 stages long with its own very separate route. The race Marianne won was a different format entirely though. 18 stages long and finishing on the same day as each men's stage, crossing very similar terrain and climbs. The Tour de France is full of stories, myths and legends as riders look to complete the race behind those at the front. My favourite such tale is that of Jens Voigt, who rode back in 2010 on a kid's bike to stay in the race. Crashing hard, the German broke his bike. With his team car and neutral service ahead of him on the route, he had no option for a spare bike. Don't forget, team cars are forbidden from driving in the opposite direction to the route. Luckily for Voigt, a convoy car following the race with kids' bikes on board stopped to check he was okay. He then managed to borrow a bike, riding 15 kilometres on a child's bike to a policeman who was waiting with his actual team bike, dropped by his team car. The photos that emerged from that 15-kilometre ride cemented the story in Tour de France folklore. If in doubt, ride flat out. The Tour de France has some incredible fans, and especially on big mountain days, the atmosphere is electric. The graffiti left on the road has become a real part of the race itself, with some brilliant words of support and drawings left to encourage riders and also be spotted from TV helicopter pictures. However, not all those drawings are family friendly. If you've ever wondered why there are lots of owls and butterflies drawn on the Tour de France's roads, because of a team of underappreciated heroes, travelling ahead, transforming all the big sausages into less offensive sketches. Of course, one or two slipped through the net, but thanks to this team of creative painters, the TV helicopter can capture the race and still be okay for daytime TV. Tadej Pogačar, Mathieu van der Poel, Jonas Vingegaard, they are all superstars of this generation in men's pro cycling, putting down big performances, winning left, right and centre. These riders are often compared to Eddy Merckx, who is generally considered the greatest cyclist of all time. But despite impressive modern-day performances, it will be hard to outdo Merckx's legacy. Perhaps this one stat will prove my point. There has only been one rider to ever win all three jerseys at the Tour, yellow, points and mountains classifications in one edition. In 1969, Eddy Merckx did just that, which also happened to be his first Tour de France, a race in which he won 7 stages. Beat that Tadej Pogačar. Aside from being a sporting spectacle, the Tour de France is a massive commercial machine. All in all, there are 67 sponsors of the men's race and over 40 of the women's, from the likes of Haribo, TikTok to Zwift. The revenue generated by the race in total from the likes of sponsorship and TV rights deals is thought to be in the region of $70 million. Actually, on the topic of where you can watch the race, Tour is actually broadcast in over 190 countries, 60 of which show the race live. It's a pretty mind-blowing stat. The youngest cyclist to win the Tour de France was named Henry Cornet, who raced in the second edition of the race in 1904. He took the winning title at the impressive age of just 19 years old. Cornet never had further success in the Tour though, dropping out in 1905 on the 4th day. It's the difference though in winning ages that makes this race so remarkable, I think. Riders can extend their careers if they're lucky. Annemiek van Vleuten won the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift in 2022 at the age of 39. Just a couple of years younger than Pino Cerami, who won a stage of the men's race in 1963 at 41. Bordeaux, located towards the flatter parts of France's western coastline. A sprinter's heaven which has often hosted the finish of many a dramatic Tour bunch sprint. After the French capital, Paris, Bordeaux has actually hosted the most amount of stage starts and finishes in the men's race. 81 to be precise, behind Paris with 148 appearances. A prolific city then in the race, but interestingly, it's never hosted the start of the race overall. The Grand Depart snubbing Bordeaux for the Tour's entire history. In fact, the Tour has started outside France more often than not in recent years. There have been 26 overall race starts outside France in the race's history, 11 of which have come in the last 2 decades. Finishing last at the Tour carries a great deal of publicity for the rider that makes it home at the very back. Otherwise known as the Lanterne Rouge, it's been a controversial accolade at the race over the years and connected to one of the weirdest rules implemented in the race. In the 1980 edition, organisers created a rule in which the last placed rider overall between the 14th and 20th stage of the race was eliminated. Last place overall after any of those stages, and home you went. Despite this, Gerard Schoenbacher still managed to take last place and the plaudits that went with it. Controversy reigned after the race though. His sponsor had promised him a cash bonus for coming in last, but the money never appeared, resulting in a fallout with his team leader, now Quick-Step boss Patrick Lefevere. In 2018 though, Lawson Craddock actually became the first rider in the history of the Tour to have the distinction of Lanterne Rouge for all stages of the entire race. He crashed on the first stage, resulting in facial lacerations and a fractured scapula. Soldiering on, he managed to finish the Tour and raised over $250,000 in the process to help rebuild Alkek Velodrome, which was damaged in Hurricane Harvey. Incidentally, I've also won the Lanterne Rouge at the 2017 Vuelta a España. A fact I'd always be proud of. Last up, and there are unwritten rules aplenty at the Tour, one of which is that there is no racing for the overall classification on the final stage. A truce has always been called whilst the sprinters reign supreme. However, in 2025, the finish has been changed to include the 6% Montmartre climb after its inclusion in the Olympic road race. Will we see the fox amongst the chickens? All bets are off. In 1947, though, Jean Robic did just that, breaking away with half the final stage remaining and jumping from third to first by the day's end, winning the Tour but never actually wearing yellow once during the race. Pierre Brambilla, who had been leading, was rumoured to bury his own bike after the stage in disgust. Interestingly, it was also rumoured that the bunch failed to chase Robic down as they were unfavourable to ride for Brambilla. He was riding for a team of Italians living in France in the years immediately following World War II. What is certain, though, is that Robic's only yellow jersey is still on display at the Santa Anna de Auré Basilica in Brittany. There you go then, a few weird and wonderful facts from the Tour de France. Let us know if you found out any more, because the history of the Tour is just so vast and varied, and we'd love to hear of any of those little tidbits. I hope you found this video useful and found it interesting too. Tour de France, what a race. I can't wait to watch it this year. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Thanks for watching all. See you on the next one.